You've felt it before. The ache behind your chest when she pulls away. Not with words, but with silence. A silence that slices deeper than any goodbye ever could. You sit there staring at the screen, waiting for a message that never comes. Convincing yourself it's patience, when it's just surrender. Because deep down, you know this isn't the first time. Not with her, not with any of them. Every time you choose a woman, it's like pulling a lever in a broken machine, hoping this time the outcome will be different, but it never is. And what if I told you? Machiavelli saw this coming. Centuries ago, before modern romance, before Tinder, texting, or therapy, he understood the part of you that makes these choices, and what he warned men about choosing women was never truly about women at all. It was about the shadow behind your choices, the power you give away, the throne you abandon in exchange for affection. And now you're here, ready to understand what no one ever dared to teach you. But you don't just want love. You want to be chosen, to be the one she sees when she scans a room full of men, to feel irreplaceable, powerful, to finally silence that gnawing voice whispering, "You're not enough." You call it chemistry, but it's survival. Because somewhere along the way, you learned that your worth was measured by how tightly she holds on, or how easily she lets go. So you bend. You soften your edges. You give more than you mean to, offer more than was asked. And when it's still not enough, you tell yourself next time you'll pick better. A woman with fewer red flags, less chaos, more loyalty. But here's the question. Why do you keep choosing women who make you feel small? Why do you chase devotion from those least capable of giving it? Could it be that your choices aren't choices at all? That they're compulsions, disguised as desire? Patterns written long before you knew you were even playing a game. Machiavelli understood something most men never admit. You don't seek a woman. You seek a reflection of your own forgotten power. But until you see the game, you'll keep mistaking the players for the prize. Niccolo Machiavelli is remembered for one thing: power without illusion. He stripped away the noble lies men tell themselves and stared directly into the machinery of human desire. But Machiavelli wasn't just a political strategist. He was a surgeon of motive. And he knew that most men, especially when it comes to women, are ruled not by strength, but by fear masquerading as love. He warned, men should be either caressed or crushed. And what do you do time and time again? You offer your neck before she even reaches for the sword. You think you're choosing her. But Machiavelli would say, no, you're surrendering. Here's the truth he whispered behind closed doors. He who builds on the people builds on mud. That includes building your worth on her approval, your peace on her affection, your masculinity on her desire. This isn't about women. It's about where you've placed your throne. And once you see that, you can never unsee it. Now the descent begins, because the woman isn't the trap. Your idea of yourself is. You thought love was the goal, that choosing the right woman would end the war inside you. But you never realized you were choosing as a beggar, not a king. Look closer at your history, the ones you chased, the ones who slipped away, and the ones who stayed just long enough to unravel you. What did they all have in common? They mirrored your wound, not your worth. You told yourself it was fate, it was chemistry, but it was addiction. You weren't choosing love. You were choosing familiar pain, A pain that felt like home because you never learned what home actually was. And society? It romanticizes this sickness. Men raised on fairy tales of redemption through devotion, taught that a woman's love will heal your inner void, that suffering for her is noble, that the one who hurts you most is the one worth fighting for. But Machiavelli would scoff. He'd tell you, a prince must learn how not to be good, not because cruelty is strength, but because clarity is. Because a man who sees clearly does not chase illusions dressed in perfume and promises. And yet here you are, not loving, but kneeling, not choosing, but submitting. And the tragedy? You think this is what being a good man looks like. But in truth, you've become your own captor. And she? Only the mirror you handed the key. Here's the truth no one dares to tell you. You weren't choosing her. You were outsourcing your identity. You handed her the pen and begged her to write a story where you mattered. Because somewhere long ago, you stopped believing you could write it yourself. That's not love. That's spiritual abandonment. The mechanism is projection, a cruel trick of the psyche. Carl Jung called it the transfer of one's soul onto another. You don't fall for her. You fall for the part of yourself you buried, and then mistook her for the resurrection. She doesn't complete you. She reflects the pieces you refuse to claim. That's why the attraction is so intense. It's not chemistry. It's possession. And Machiavelli? He'd call it weakness. Because a man who must be chosen to feel real is not a man. He's a shadow, shaped by the gaze of others, forever begging to be seen. And here's the wound that stings the most. You didn't want her to love you. You wanted her to redeem everything you've never faced. Every scar, every silence, every moment you felt invisible. But she can't save you from that. No one can. Stay asleep, and you become the man who trades his spine for her smile. You'll orbit women like the earth begs for the sun, gravitating toward warmth, but burning every time you get too close. You'll confuse being needed with being respected. Mistake submission for intimacy. You'll call it love, but it'll be dependency, dressed up in romantic language. And when she leaves, because eventually she will, you'll spiral. You'll tell yourself she changed, that women can't be trusted, that next time you'll just pick someone kinder. But it was never about her. It was about you, blindfolded by your own hunger. And look around. You've seen him. The man in his 40s, still chasing validation through younger faces. The man who stays in a dead marriage, numb, silent, staring at the wall. The man who becomes cruel. Not because he's evil, but because he gave everything and still wasn't seen. That is the price of unclaimed identity. To rot in plain sight. To perform a version of masculinity built on sacrifice, when power was yours all along. But Machiavelli warned us, he who seeks to be loved over being feared will be devoured. Not by her, by yourself. So now the mirror turns, and I have to ask you, how many times have you called it love when it was really fear? How many times have you chosen a woman, not because she honored your strength, but because she distracted you from your weakness? When did you first learn to measure your worth by her reaction? Was it the first rejection? The mother who withdrew? The first girl who made you feel alive, then vanished? How much of your type is just a wound you're trying to rewrite? How much of your loyalty is really just fear of being alone? And more importantly, what have you abandoned in yourself to be accepted? Your voice, your standards, your self-respect. You keep telling yourself you just haven't found the right one. But what if the truth is darker? What if no woman will ever feel right until you stop looking for her to fix you? This isn't judgment. It's a reckoning. Because no strategy, no red flags checklist, no dating rule will save a man who still refuses to see himself. And Machiavelli knew, until a man chooses himself, every woman he chooses will be a form of self-abandonment. So here it is. The truth behind the game you've been playing. You were never choosing women. You were choosing how far you'd be willing to fall, just to feel seen. But Machiavelli didn't write for the sentimental. He wrote for rulers. Men who don't beg to be loved, but choose to be respected. And respect doesn't come from her. It starts when you reclaim what you handed away without even realizing it. Your frame, your edge, your sovereignty. Because the man who chooses from wholeness doesn't chase approval. He selects and walks away if needed. He doesn't look for a woman to build his kingdom around. He looks for one who can walk beside it without shaking its walls. So choose. But choose from power, not hunger. From clarity, not longing. From vision, not desperation. Because if you don't, you'll keep mistaking surrender for connection, and you'll call it fate as you slowly disappear into someone else's dream. A man who cannot govern himself will always look to be governed by her. If this video woke something up in you, subscribe. We go deeper than most are willing to go.